Good morning, and welcome to the Rapid City Planning Commission meeting for August 25th, 2022. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the agenda today, there are speaker request forms on the table along the left wall. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the staff seated on the left of the dais. At this time, we would also like to ask that if any member of the audience has a cell phone or other electronic device, that you either turn it off or turn the ringer to silent. If you need to take a call, please step out to the hallway so the meeting is not disrupted. Items 1 through 5 have been placed on the consent calendar today and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of the Planning Commission are recommendations to the City Council. The City Council will make the final decision. Are there any items 1 through 5 that staff would like removed from the consent calendar for separate consideration? And are there any items 1 through 5 that any Planning Commissioner would like removed for separate consideration? And do any audience members want to remove any items 1 through 5 for separate consideration at this time? The chair would then entertain a motion to approve items 1 through 5 in accordance with staff's recommendation. All right, Vince made the motion to approve those items and Mike Kwasny seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6.
Not used to that. This item is a major amendment to a plan development overlay to allow an accessory dwelling unit at 4709 Powderhorn Circle. The property currently consists of a 2-story single-family dwelling. The property is zoned low-density residential district. Future land use is low-density neighborhood. The property is located south of Chapel Lane, which is classified as a collector street on the city's major street plan. Shown here is a rendering of a project. As you can see, the accessory dwelling unit is located on the right-hand side of the dwelling and will be 2 stories in height. The applicant is requesting exceptions to allow a 6.5-foot setback to the first story in lieu of 8 feet and a 10-foot setback to the second story in lieu of 20 feet. Staff supports the exceptions considering there is over 45 feet of separation to the adjacent dwelling to the west there. A single-car garage will be located on the ground floor, and the second floor will consist of a bedroom, living room, bathroom, and kitchen. On-site photos. Public notice was posted on the property. This is looking north along Powderhorn Circle. This is looking east along Powderhorn Drive, and looking west as well. Staff is recommending that this item be approved, subject to the stipulations outlined in the report, and I'd be happy to take any questions the commission may have.
Any questions or comments from the commission on this item?
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
I just wanted to comment that this is a permitted use, but because this development is within a planned development, it required that it be brought forward for you folks for review.
Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one question as far as the stipulations. Do the stipulations have to state that we're recommending and approving the change in setbacks on both sides?
Mr. Chair?
Vicki?
Thank you. So if this were outside of a planned development and they couldn't meet the setback requirements, they would be before you for a variance for the setback, but not the land use. Because this is a planned development, Chapel Valley's planned development is written that any expansion or change requires a major amendment to the planned development. requiring review and approval by the Planning Commission. The plan development then serves as the tool for you to deviate from the land area regulations, such as setbacks, lot coverage, height, parking requirements, etc. So you are authorized through the plan development to grant the exception if you concur with staff's recommendation and to allow for the expansion of use.
So it doesn't have to be stated in that stipulations, it's just automatic?
I'm not sure what you're getting at, but let me just pull up the project report real quick.
I just was looking at the stipulations of approval, and it didn't state in there about the setbacks, and I didn't know if that was something that had to be actually stated, or if it was just...
It does. Mr. Chair, a friendly amendment to the report. We'll just add a stipulation number 7 that an exception is hereby granted to reduce the side yard setback for a one-story structure from 8 foot to...
It's from 6 feet to 8 feet, or
From
in lieu
8
of 8
foot
feet,
to-
and then 20 feet in lieu of 10 feet for the second story.
6 feet in lieu of 8 feet, and 10 feet in lieu of 20 feet.
Thanks, Vicki.
Great catch.
All right, any potential motions, makers, please keep that in mind. Additional stipulation. Eric Heikus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will not be voting on this item because there's enough commissioners here, but I'm a big fan of the ADU. I think that's always been a powerful tool for communities such as ours and its growth patterns. It uses existing infrastructure and creates opportunities for a mix of housing that's really appropriate. So that's always been my vote of confidence in the ADU. I'm in agreement with Vicki as well about the plan development almost kind of takes on its own identity as its own unique zoning. So the setbacks and that sort of thing can kind of just be fit to what the plan development is. So I guess that's it. Those are my statements.
Haven?
The term accessory dwelling unit is in the application, and it's capitalized. So apparently, that is there's some definition of that in the ordinances.
Mr. Chair?
Vicki?
There is. So prior to the adoption of the accessory dwelling unit regulations that took place about 3 years ago, when you lived in a single-family residential neighborhood and it was zoned low-density residential, 1 or 2, you could only have one family living on every property. And we have a definition of family, too. It's 5 people that may be unrelated, no more than 5 unrelated, or if it's a family that are related by marriage or otherwise, there's no limit. And so we brought forward an ordinance amendment. It took several public hearings coming before the Planning Commission and the City Council to allow for someone to create an accessory dwelling unit that they can rent. During that time when we were introducing this, we spoke of the fact that it created additional income for people to help pay mortgage, maybe change their retirement date. It also allows people to age in place. Maybe a grown child could live in their family, could live in one of the units and help assist them. Maybe they would go to the smaller unit and their children would live in the bigger one with the children. It just really allows for that diversified housing and meets the needs of our growing, aging community that want to stay in place and stay in the house that they raise their families in. So we've had several that have been permitted through the permitting process. This one is only before you because it's in a very unique plan development, and it's required that any expansion or change of use be brought before the Planning Commission for approval.
So when you use the term accessory dwelling unit, then is there something different about it that would make it a dwelling unit in itself? In other words, a kitchen and
Right. So it has to meet building code requirement, be a minimum of 150 square feet, has to have eating facilities, sleeping facilities, and a bathroom. It can be attached to the home, as this one is. It can be detached. If it's detached, it has to set behind the principal structure. It cannot be bigger than the principal structure.
All right, I hesitate to bring this up. Chapel Valley has been in front of, the neighborhood in general has been in front of this commission in the past for access. One in, one out, or, you know, one lane in, one lane out. I personally lean towards supporting ADUs, and I think this is a great spot for it. What are our fire code, you know, that
Part of the stipulation.
zone, what are our responsibilities as a commission for this neighborhood?
So the infrastructure design criteria manual speaks to the minimum access that must be met. And in there is the number 40. You can have 40 dwelling units, and then you must create a second point of access. As we all know, Chapel Valley has one way in and one way out. In consideration of that, it is required that the accessory dwelling unit have a fire suppression system, and you will see that as stipulation number 3 in the project report. And Chip might want to speak to that, but it's been the compromise that the fire department has brought forward. It really is a fire code concern, so that if we do have additional density in an area with limited access, that we're getting that extra fire protection so that it limits the scope of the fire and doesn't impact others.
I'd be glad to hear from Chip. I don't always get my questions out very eloquently at the start, but do we, I guess, to follow on, do we allow future lots to be platted off of existing lots in this neighborhood? Are we allowing more density to happen in this neighborhood for single-family homes?
So we have. We have had people split property and turn it into townhome lots. Requires a major amendment to the plan development to change the land use. Requires an exception to the 40-unit rule. Because that's a part of a platting process, you don't see those. Those go before the city council, but not many over my course of years with the city. I would say probably 5 to 10 plats that I think we've reviewed in Chapel Valley in the last 27 years that I'm aware of.
Chip, would you like to comment? I'd appreciate your insight.
Sure, thank you. Good question. It is a concern when we have, you know, limited access, but we as a community, as the fire department's been very proactive with the surrounding community, you know, the developments on doing the wildland interface projects, which is a great tool. And it thins the forest out, makes it a healthy forest, and it deters the chance of a crowning fire in the trees. Like you'll see a lot of these communities across the country, they haven't done any wildland interface. So when the fire blows through, it builds up steam, and then it wipes out the whole developments and a lot of the houses. So what we've been trying to do for quite a few years now is around the city and these developments that come in, we do a thinning process with it, with the trees. So we try to slow the steam of that fire building up. And of course, you know, it was a year and a half ago or whatever, we had the big fire, and the Auburn, not the Auburn, but the, no, I forgot the name of it. It was,
Woodard Road.
yeah, all that area was thinned before, so it was, the fire was able to not build up steam and burn through that whole development. And then what we do, it's important for us for the setbacks. We watch them closely, and what we do is the residents that are requesting to be close to the setback, we require the fire sprinkler part. And that way, if there's a fire in the house, and it'll pretty much put the fire out or slow it down, gives a chance, so it doesn't impede on the neighbors' ability to do things on their property too. So I hope that answered your question. If you have any more, let me know.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
if I might add, several years ago when we brought forward the proposal to create a second point of access on the south end of Chapel Valley, we only remember that many of the residents opposed that. They were concerned with it being a through street. Those streets are private for the most part through that development. I sat on an ad hoc committee with representatives of the different homeowner associations within Chapel Valley, and they created an emergency preparedness plan that is still in place. In fact, this summer they had a celebration bringing together the community that spoke of the plan and how they notify each other, and just being aware of the weather, fire, natural events that can occur where access does become an issue. So that is an added level of protection that other areas of our city with limited access don't take that extra step to create. But with the fire protection, the ability to create another housing unit in this area seemed to win from our recommendation side, with housing being of such a shortage, noting that with this suppression, it will actually help with the existing structure too.
Mike Kwasny?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is a great opportunity to support that second access that we've talked about multiple times, because Sheridan Lake Road needs that access. And I think as we go forward, we need to try to promote to have that go both ways. And I guess as they do this, if they do this kind of where we increase the load on that exit, it makes it even more important, especially along the hills. If a fire were to break out on one side or the other, I think it's vital that they have access on the other side, being able to get out and save lives. So I think this is a great opportunity to bring up again the dual access, and it will help both communities in that event.
Vince? All right, Vince made the motion to approve item number 6 with the stipulations as listed, as well as include a 7th stipulation, and please help me with the wording on the 7th stipulation, but I think it's to allow an 8-foot setback to the first floor and a 10-foot setback for the second floor? Or
As an exception is hereby granted to reduce the side yard setback for the one-story structure from 8 feet to 6 feet,
Okay,
and to reduce the side yard setback for the two-story portion of the structure from 20 feet to 10 feet.
all right. Vince, does that match your 7th stipulation? All right, Mike? Okay. Mike Gallagher made the second on that motion. Any discussion on the motion? Mike Kwasny?
I like what they're doing here. I will be voting no, only to promote the second access that I talked about.
All right, any other comments on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the motion carries with Mike Kwasny voting no. Item number 7.
This item is a final plan development overlay to allow an apartment development for the property located northeast of Stumer and Shelby. The proposed development will be located on the office commercial portion of the site. Future land use is urban neighborhood. The property is located north of Stumer Road, which is classified as a collector street on the city's major street plan. So this is a phase development. Phase 1 is the south lot and includes a 41-unit apartment building, and phase 2 is the north lot and includes 119 apartment building. It does say 125 units on the screen, but it is 119 units. The applicant is requesting an exception to omit the planter island requirement for Phase 1. Staff supports the exception, considering the applicant has exceeded the landscaping requirement. Also, adding that planter island would actually increase the impervious area of Phase 1. Required open space for Phase 1 will be provided with grassed area surrounding the building and playground to the east side of the building. And then the open space for Phase 2 will be provided with the grassed area around the building, and there is an interior recreation area in the building that you can see in those hashed lines. Shown here is Phase 1 elevations. The building will be 3 stories or 34.8 feet in height. And then the Phase 2 elevations will also be 3 stories and 34.4 feet in height. On to site photos. Public notice was posted on the property. This is looking north along Shelby Ave, and then looking south along that same street. This is looking east along Stumer Road and looking west as well. So staff is recommending that this item be approved, subject to the stipulations outlined in the report, and I'd be happy to take any questions the Commission may have.
Mike Kwasny?
Mr. Commissioner, thank you. I'd like to recuse myself on this one, please.
Okay. Any other questions for staff or comments on this item?
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
we have an audience member that lives in this area that spoke to staff before the meeting to visit about some concerns with drainage specific to this project. And this is a final plan development. It will still require a building permit in order to start construction on that. As a part of that, they will have a complete drainage plan that will show that they are capturing the flows so that they do not exceed what's currently there. They will have stormwater quality provisions within their design plan. I didn't know if potentially Todd could add anything more to that, but I visited with Chino and said I would try to make sure that we addressed it as a part of today's presentation.
Todd, if you're willing to add anything, I guess I'd echo that question with an undeveloped portion sort of to the east.
Vicki is correct. With the building permit, we'll get the final drainage report, but there is a regional drainage pond just to the north of this property that this property will discharge into, which should address the drainage and water quality.
Mr. Chair, there is an actual stipulation in the report that says upon submittal of a building permit, the drainage report shall evaluate the existing detention pond for capacity and stormwater quality. Otherwise, the applicant shall provide on-site detention and stormwater quality for both lots on-site.
All right. Other comments from the commission? Questions? Okay. Mike Goller made the motion to approve with stipulations, and Eric Heikus seconded that motion. I assume since Mike Kwasny is abstaining that Eric can vote on this item. Just, I like to get Andrea's nod. All right, any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries with Mike Kwasny abstaining. Item number 8.
Good morning. Item number 8 is a request for a conditional use permit to allow on-sale liquor in conjunction with a proposed beauty salon to be known as Benevolent Beauty, located on a property just southeast of the intersection of St. Joe and 7th Street. The property address is 623 St. Joseph Street. The property is zoned Central Business District. On-sale liquor is allowed as a conditional use within this zone. And this is a densely populated commercial area, which is where we tend to prefer to see on-sale. Future land use plan identifies the appropriate use of the property as downtown. Property is located just south of St. Joseph Street, which is classified as a principal arterial on the city's major street plan. This is an example of what the salon will be laid out like. There's a total of 12 stations within the 2,000 square foot unit. Complimentary beer and wine would be served to customers during their appointments. No alcohol would be served to anyone under the age of 21. Proposed business hours will range from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. That will be probably further solidified as they get closer to opening. There is a 6.7 square foot blade style sign proposed along the frontage of the building. This is a view of the property from or facing south, view of the property facing west along St. Joe, view of the property facing east along St. Joe, and a view of the property facing south. Staff is recommending approval of this item with the noted stipulations. The applicant is in the audience, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions on this one?
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
just to add, Marlo did a great job explaining the project and noting that they are going to be adding a sign. It will require a sign permit, and it also requires historic review just on the location of the property. So we'll ensure that that gets reviewed as well.
I just like to see pedestrian-oriented signage in the downtown area. So kudos to that. Any other comments besides mine? All right, Vince? All right, Karen seconded Vince's motion to approve with stipulations. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to the end of our normal agenda. Any staff items today, Vicki?
Just one. In the next 4 to 6 weeks, we will be hosting a Planning 101 for the new council members. We will invite Brooke as well as our new member on Planning Commission. But if there's anyone else that wants a refresher course and would like to join us, just let me know, and I'll send out an invite and make sure that you're invited as well. The intent of the training is to go through the zoning ordinance, explain the difference between a conditional use permit and a planned development, what are different zoning designations, why they were created, and the purpose behind them, and then to just quickly go through how property is platted, the purpose of a plat, and the different procedures that are followed. So it's just kind of a refresher. Those of you who sat up there a while, you know this already. But if you sometimes are wondering why are we doing it this way, this might be a good time to sit in with us and ask your questions.
Do you have a date yet?
We are waiting on the schedules of the city council, who are very busy. Once those two can concur on a date, then we'll make sure it works for Brooke and whoever else can attend.
Microphone, I'm sorry.
Is there a way to send out to all of us when you figure out a date, and maybe we can reply if we want to come?
I could actually send you an Outlook calendar invite, and you could let me know who's accepting, so I know what size room to reserve.
Okay. Thank you.
Perfect. Brooke?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just actually wanted to give a kudos to staff. I attended coffee with planners, I think it was last week, and they make things that maybe people don't think interesting, very interesting. So I think they did a great job. I think every news station in Rapid City was there to cover the event, so just kudos and well done. Thank you.
All right, any other items from the commission for today? If not, I'd look for a motion to adjourn. All right. Karen made the motion to adjourn. Mike Gallagher seconded it. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. John, did I